Hello and welcome to the Dutching channel. This morning we're going to do a tutorial about a horse called Tilsworth Turf. I don't know if you remember this, it wasn't long ago that it come through and won a small handicap 0 to 60 off 125 to 1, paid 381 I think it was on Betfair and in running was 1,000. So I just want to show you how you can bet these horses by seeing their earlier form, what the Racing Post can't see, or Time Form, or anybody else come to that matter. Only with the system that I do, you can really see this horse coming through. Now, it's not something I backed, it's not something I saw coming through. It was a case of after the event. And I do look back after the events at these big outsiders that win. It's no good me looking through a 1 to 5 favourite and thinking, why did that win? We all know why that won. So what we do, we click on to Tilsworth Turf, and we can see that this horse so far in its career has run in 9 races. And the only reason I want to show you something like this is because it won't take too long to do. So we're going to start at the bottom because the horse's form gets put in descending order by date. So its very first run would have been at Leicester on the 17th of October. So we're just going to use the first column for dates, and then the next column is what we're going to put in for the form in that column, in those 3 columns, and then it will come up in that first column there. So let's have a look back. Now, remembering what I said to you, that this horse last time out run in a 0 to 60 handicap, and it won, and it was given a Racing Post rating of 58 points. So that's what we need to just keep in our heads. Now you can see underneath 5, 23, 0, 41, 30, 45, 0, 46. Well, I'm going to show you that that form isn't real, what you're looking at here. So we're going to click on to the first of its 9 races. And first of all, you can see that it finished 6th. So the RPR rating of this first race was actually 73. And remembering this is the first race, and we're going to be going downwards until we get to the 9th, which is current. So the Racing Post rating was 73, and you could see in brackets there, if you've been following some of these tutorials, the beaten 4 lengths is by the horse in front, and the 7 3/4 is been beaten by the winner, which is the one we use. And it's always going to be a minus, because when you're beat, you're always behind. So you're always going to be in a minus, and that's a 7.75 minus. Now the difference in the weight that day, 9 stone 5 and 9 stone 5, was pretty much the same. So there's a 0 that goes there. Now you can see already that this horse has a rating of 65. I know it's 0.25, but it's a 65 rating. So at the moment, they've got 46. So already at 65, it tells me it can run in a 0 to 60 and still be a little bit more better than a 0 to 60. But that's not where we're going to finish. We're going to continue on, because we want to find out all of the form basically. So then it goes to Kempton on the 25th of October. And I think that first date I did wrong there. I said 17th and wrote 11th. So then it goes on the 25th of October this time, down to Kempton. So we'll click on this line of form, And this time you'll see that it finishes fourth, and the Racing Post rating this time is 84. It's been beaten comprehensively this time, 26 3/4 lengths, so that becomes a minus. And this time the weight, Tilsworth Turf was carrying 8 stone 12 and the winner was 9 stone 5, so that means we've got minus £7, right, because we're under the weight of the winner. So minus 7 goes in there. So this time you can see that it was only a 50 rating for that race. So yeah, that was poor in that sense. But remember that what you do with your horse, you try and get it 3 runs. You know, Sir Mark Prescott is always a favourite for that. 3 runs and show it an handicap and get it to win off a low weight. But now we're going to go to this race here at Southall, which was the 15th of December. So we'll put that in and we'll bring the race up. So we'll go down till we find it. There we go. Now we can see this time it gets beat against a horse called Juicy, and the Racing Post rating is 85. And it's been beaten by 12.5 lengths, so minus 12.5 by the winner. And it raced off of 9 stone 7, whereas the winner only raced off of 9 stone 2. So Tilsworth Turf this time has a +5 in the weights because it's higher. And that's that. So as we go down to the end here, we can now see that Tilsworth Turf has a rating of 77.75, or really nearly a 78. But you can't see these 65, 50 and 77 if you just take the first number. We go and look in at the form here, and you can only see 46, 0 and 45. Now we got 77, nearly 78 on this one. It's only rated at 45. So how they get their ratings sometimes worries me, really. So they were the only 3 runs that horse did in the back end of 2023. So then it comes out in a classified stakes this time. Let me just delete a few things off here. So this time it comes out in a classified stakes, not a handicap. It hasn't been given a handicap yet. And this would have been on the 11th of January 24. So whether you want to move down one so you can see the change of the year is up to you. So we click on this one, and this time the Racing Post rating is a 56, because this race, even though it's a classified, is basically a glorified handicap. And you'll see there it was off a 0 to 50. So even though they're not handicaps, basically if you're off a 0 to something, that's classed as a handicap. So this time Tilsworth Turf gets beat by 8 lengths. So we'll put in a -8. It runs off of 9 stone 6, and the winner runs off of 9 stone 9. So we're on a -3 this time. So you can see that they haven't won with it, and they've raced it off of 45, which is the lowest it's done so far. So they obviously didn't want this horse to win that classified stakes. So we're now going to move up to the next race, and it's back in the novice stakes. And this time, this was on the 13th of January. So we're only now 2 days after that race in the classified stakes, and it's back in a novice stakes. And again, this time it's fourth at 50 to 1. So it's raced off of 73 against Blazes Boylan. So back off of 73. It gets beat this time by 9 3/4 lengths. So a minus 9 3/4 there. But this time it's raced off of 10 stone. And the winner is off of 9 stone 1. So Tilsworth Turf is actually got a plus £13 for that because it's higher. And now, if you have a look at the new rating, it's now 76.25. So we know with that 77.75 that it can do these ratings. It's not a one-off that happened. Horses don't run one good race and then run considerably worse unless you make them run considerably worse. So now this horse has produced 2 really good ratings, or if you want to take the first into consideration, that is a 65, and the races that has been put in, like the last one in the classified, was a 0 to 50. So now it's run 5 times. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go into the 9th of March. This is where now it goes and runs in a handicap. So we'll open this one up and we can see that at the top here, this is a 0 to 55. And it's run off a Racing Post rating here of 62. And this time the horses come last. Took keen hold, prominent on outer, weakened over a furlong out, eased. Don't like them words, eased. But it gets beat 29 lengths. And that's the best thing to do with a horse if you think perhaps you don't want it to be there for some reason. Although there's no reason it couldn't have won off of 80 to 1 as opposed to 125. So this time this was 8 stone 11 and the winner was 9 stone 8. So this time we've got a minus £11 to come off. So now the rating on that race has dropped to 22. So we know that no one said anything, they've not been called in, it's run a 22. Don't forget the bad figures that it's actually got. It hasn't got 76, it hasn't got 77, it's got 46, 0, 45, 30, 41, and out of that race where I've just given it a 22, it's got a 0. So then they decide to bring that out again 5 days later, but maybe you wouldn't if you knew that that horse was suffering from something and you've eased it up. Would you run it again 5 days later? Let's have a look at what happened 5 days later. It was put in again, this time in a 0 to 50. Does like the classified stakes, but they are a glorified handicap, as I always say. This time, 56. It runs off an RPR and it gets beat by 9 1/4 lengths. So getting beat 9 1/4 lengths isn't bad. And this time it runs off of 9 stone 9. And again, the winner was off a 9 stone 9. So there's no change there. So they've got that now up to a 46 or 46.75 rating. And what do after this? They bring it out yet again. And this time they've given it a month's rest because they know you can see that something is in the shake-up. They're running it for every 5 days and then suddenly they give it a month's break. So they're getting ready for this horse to be plotted. Now they've put it up to a 0 to 65. Still a Class 6, but they've put it up this time. So now it's running off a Racing Post rating at 68. And don't forget, this is the 13th of April, this race. And what do they do with the horse this time? Well, it gets beat into last yet again. Took keen hold, chased clear leader, headway over 2 out, soon prominent, lost position over a furlong out. What have we got again? Eased. Jockey said Gelding was unbalanced and she felt it prudent to ease him. Well, it only got beat 16 3/4 lengths, which is not a lot when you take it that it's running the race and been eased. But the weight this time was 7.13 as opposed to the winner's 8.8. So we've got a -9 to account for that. So that's brought that down to a 42.25. We know at some point that this horse is going to go in. But when is a bit like the one where I've picked out today called Bloodhound. Right, this horse is going to win, but it's when. And what is the factors that you need to look for before you back those horses when you're sure they're going to go in? Well, we don't know and we'll never know, because we've seen here that this horse has now finished a 45, a 46 and a 42 in 3 out of the last 4 bad runnings. And of course it did a 22. So now this horse is getting worse from its trial runs, if you like, in the novice stakes, but it has 2 very good lines of form. So what we would need to do is continue backing this horse. And we would have backed it since it done that 77. So we would have backed it in the classified. We wouldn't have backed it in the novice stakes. And we would have backed it again, again, and again. And we would have keep backing it until it won. But this wasn't something I'd looked at until today when I was going through all these big winners. And then they put it again 2 weeks later on the 27th of April. And this time, bingo, it wins. Everyone's scratching their head. How has this horse come through and won? No one can work it out. We can't work it out until we go back, because it's only got 9 lines of form. It's quite easy to go back on it. So we can see now that it's won by 2 1/4 lengths. And let's have a look at what they said, because the trainer said, regarding the apparent improvement in form, that gelding benefited from the slower going on this occasion, officially described as soft. We know that is absolute rubbish. All right, we know it's rubbish. And the Racing Post rating now have given them a mark of 58. We know when you win, you get a 0 and a 0 there. So now this horse has been rated 58, all right, on its win for 125 to 1. That you could have got 381 on Betfair and 1,000 as they set off, because I just happened to watch it. So now, when that goes up in grade, because now it will most probably end up in a 0 to 60, 0 to 65, and if it does, it will be on a high weight. But it's still a lot better than what they've given it as a rating. So will that go in again? This horse now would normally go in until it gets to its mark. And we know the horse's best mark is 77 stroke going down to 76. That horse in its whole lifetime will most probably not go above those figures. I would say about 20-25% of horses will rise above their first initial figures. So this is a horse to look out for. It's too late to look out for it now. That's why I'm trying to give you ones in advance. But if I wasn't doing the betting in the afternoon, I would have handfuls of time to look for these horses and look for some kind of plot. But after it's done the 77, then a 45, then a 76, they've messed around with it. Where they've eased it twice in 3 runnings. Nothing to do with the ground. How they accept these explanations, I don't know. I know that this horse was a lot better than that class. And regardless, they didn't need to bring it out and do it in that race. They could have brought that out in any race after it had done that 76. Well, in fact, what I would have done after that 77, I mostly would have turned it out the next time. But they've given it more bad runs just to get that weight even further down and then get a low mark again, this time of 58. So these trainers know exactly what they're doing. And that's everything now on Tilsworth Turf. You're welcome to look back on your own selections. If you want to look for any 3-year-olds there or 2-year-olds that have just become 3-year-olds, and have a look at what they could have done to what kind of a race they're in. As I said, there's a horse running today called Bloodhound. I've got that off 94, and that's running in a 0 to 70. It's a little bit a higher grade, so it's not as easy as getting a winner in this grade. So that's about it for that tutorial, and I'll try and fit some more of these in as we go on, but thanks for watching.